Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine you're the successful CEO, right? You're totally dialed into your routine, especially when you fly first class.
Yeah.
You expect, a certain level of service, you've pre-ordered your meal, everything's set.
Standard procedure for that kind of travel.
Exactly. But then just one small thing goes wrong, your meal, the one you ordered. It isn't available. And this little thing, it triggers this huge chain reaction, a deep realization and consequences that, well, nobody really saw coming.
Mhm.
So we're diving into a whole stack of material today, all focused on this one incident. It involves a CEO named Darius Coleman and a flight on Stratus Air.
Right.
And our goal here, really dig into these sources, pull up the key insights, understand exactly what went down, why it mattered so much, and, what happened afterwards.
It's fascinating because what seems like, on the surface, just a minor customer service hiccup, it really blows up.
It does.
It becomes the flashpoint for exposing these much deeper sort of systemic problems inside this big company. The sources lay it all out, the incident itself, and then this very strategic response that follows.
Absolutely. So let's set the scene first. We meet Darius Coleman. He's described as, a highly successful CEO.
Top of his game.
Yeah, the details really paint this picture of someone who's very used to luxury travel, specifically flying first class on Stratus Air. You can picture him. Sharp suit, polished shoes, settling into that first class seat.
Focused. He's working on a big merger presentation, something for Geneva.
Right. And the sources really stress his routine. This wasn't like a one-off flight for him.
No, definitely.
He always pre-ordered his meal.
Yeah.
And they specify it. Lobster bisque, then filet mignon.
And that's important, right? It's highlighted not just because it's fancy food, but it's like a symbol.
A symbol of what?
Of the whole expected treatment. The premium service that Stratus Air was selling, especially to its first-class passengers, was part of the deal.
Got it. Part of the established experience he paid for. But then, that routine just gets completely smashed. The story says a flight attendant comes back to him.
And the look on her face is apparently apologetic, at first glance anyway.
Right, and she tells him they're out of the luxury meal options, the ones he ordered.
And the contrast is just stark. What he ordered, that biscuit fillet, versus what they offered him instead.
Which was?
Just a simple sandwich and tap water.
Wow. Okay.
And the description of the flight attendant and her whole demeanor is really key here. Her voice was apparently smooth, but something about it, didn't sit well with Darius.
Oh, so?
Well, she reportedly hurried off really quickly, gave this kind of dismissive response like, oh, it must not have gone through. Happens sometimes.
Brushing it off.
Yeah, exactly. And apparently turned away before he could even properly respond or ask anything else.
Okay, and the scene around him just makes it worse, right? The material mentions other passengers nearby.
Yeah, described as all white men, also in tailored suits.
And what are they getting?
Things like caviar, champagne, served with what's called a lavish display.
Okay, so he sees this happening right next to him. The contrast isn't just the food itself, it's the whole experience of service.
Exactly. And this is the moment, according to the account, where it really hits Darius. That realization.
What's his initial reaction?
Confusion, mostly. His jaw tightens, but he keeps his face totally impassive. CEO composure.
Right.
His first thought is just, what? What just happened? Because like you said, this kind of thing had never happened to him before.
Not in a decade of flying Stratus first class.
Never. So that break in a long-established pattern, that's crucial.
Yeah. The story says he just stared at that sad little tray they gave him and felt mocked. It became clear to him very quickly this wasn't just some simple mistake, not just an oversight about his meal order.
No, it was the attendant's quick dismissal, her body language, the rushing off, the total lack of a real apology.
He felt it told him everything.
Yeah. The core feeling described is just being fundamentally overlooked. Not just as a paying customer, a premium one at that, but overlooked as a person.
And then there's that critical observation the sources underline.
He was the only black man in that cabin.
Right, and the material says in that specific moment, he felt that fact more deeply than ever before.
And that feeling immediately clicks into place with something bigger for him, a pattern.
A pattern he'd seen before.
Exactly, throughout his life. The sources are really clear. For Darius, this wasn't some isolated error by one flight attendant. It felt like, like subtle racism.
Those unspoken assumptions.
Right. That feeling of not quite belonging or maybe not deserving the same easy, automatic respect and treatment that others just seemed to get without asking. He looked around. The other passengers hadn't even noticed.
It's a really powerful point about perception, isn't it? Because for someone else, Maybe it is just bad customer service. Annoying, but forgettable.
But for someone who's navigated a lifetime of subtle biases, microaggressions, an event like this, it lands differently.
It carries the weight of all those past experiences.
Precisely. It shifts from just an inconvenience into something much, much more significant. A confirmation, almost.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. His internal state is described as quiet fury.
Yeah, building up inside, his mind's racing. He just can't shake this feeling that something deliberate happened behind the scenes.
He felt dismissed, reduced, like he wasn't worth the standard effort everyone else got.
But his decision-making process, it wasn't impulsive. He didn't yell or make a scene.
No, the story really emphasizes his character here. He wasn't the type to just let this slide. No way.
Definitely not. But his response wasn't going to be emotional or confrontational right then and there.
He decided he would address it, but how?
Calmly, quietly, but decisively. That's the quote.
And then comes the pivotal action. It's described very precisely. His phone buzzes.
A message from his assistant, a guy named Marcus Brandt.
And Darius's reply. Just one sentence, but wow, it's incredibly strategic.
What does he say?
Initiate internal audit protocol. Flight 917. Cabin crew ID needed. Confirm when ready.
Boom, just like that.
Yeah, that single text message instantly changes the whole game.
It totally expands the scope. This isn't just about getting his filet mignon or even getting an apology anymore.
No, this is about sending a very clear message.
Yeah.
And exposing what he suspected was a deeper systemic issue within the airline's culture.
It goes from a personal insult to a professional directive for investigation and change.
Okay, so let's dig into that systemic issue a bit more. The story brings in Marcus Brandt, Darius's assistant, described as ever vigilant.
Right. And he gets to work immediately, accessing airline employee records.
What does he find?
Well, according to the account, what he finds seems to back up Darius's suspicions about the crew's behavior. He pulls the personnel files specifically for the attendants on that flight, Flight 917.
And is there anything specific about the attendant who denied the meal?
Oh, yeah. This is a key detail. The record showed she actually had a history of complaints.
Really? Like what?
Not just minor stuff. Mentions of discriminatory remarks, rude behavior, even passive-aggressive comments about prioritizing certain guests.
Prioritizing certain guests. Wow, that ties right back in.
Exactly. And that's the aha moment the material really points to. This wasn't presented as just, a one-off bad day for this employee.
The files suggested a pattern.
Right. As the sources put it, it was systemic. This kind of behavior had a history. It clearly wasn't being properly addressed, and it seemed linked to this idea of prioritizing some passengers over others.
So Darius's motivation, it really goes beyond just getting even for the bad service.
Absolutely. It was about using his experience and, frankly, his power to shine a light on this hidden system.
To force some accountability.
Yeah, and hopefully stop others from getting treated the same way. It's a pretty potent example of turning a personal slight into a push for real organizational change.
Okay, so back on the plane, what happens next in the cabin?
Well, Darius taps the service button again. This time the description says, more deliberately.
Okay, and who comes? The same attendant.
No, a different one. An older male attendant this time. And the description notes there was a visible hesitation in his step.
Like he already knew something was up.
Yeah, like maybe word had spread among the crew that seat 1A wasn't happy, and maybe why? Something had shifted, is how it's phrased.
And Darius, how does he handle it?
Still calm, but firm. He asks for clarification again about the meal situation.
But his question is very pointed, right? Almost quoting that documentation Brandt found.
Exactly. He says something like, I pre-ordered a luxury meal, and yet I've been given something else. You mentioned something about prioritizing guests. Can you explain that?
Oof. Direct hit.
Yeah. And the account says the attendant just stammered. Couldn't give a straight answer.
And Darius.
He cuts him off. Doesn't even let him finish floundering. Just states, very deliberately, very precisely, I understand completely.
Wow. Message received. He wasn't looking for an excuse at that point.
No. He was letting them know that he knew the game was already in motion.
Right, because as they're getting closer to Geneva, the material makes it super clear Darius is already thinking way past the flight itself.
He's several steps ahead. His actions weren't really happening in the cabin anymore. They were happening on the ground, set in motion by that text.
His next move would be the final one. And the story says the results were going to be undeniable. Stratosair was about to feel the impact of his quiet decision.
And you see that impact the second the plane lands. The scene when they disembark, it's striking.
What happens?
Two sharply dressed airline officials are waiting right there at the gate, presumably for Darius.
And does he talk to them?
Nope. Walks right past them, without a word.
Why? Because it was already handled.
Pretty much.
Hmm.
The sources reveal the wheels were already turning fast. He'd already sent video evidence.
Video evidence from the flight.
Presumably, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe recorded discreetly on his phone during the interactions. Sent directly to the CEO of Stratasair.
And that audit request.
Already well underway.
Mm-hmm.
Initiated by that single text to Marcus Brandt.
So that's the trap the material talks about.
Exactly. What the crew on Flight 917 completely missed was that Darius wasn't just some unhappy passenger they could brush off.
He had the means and the motive.
And he strategically used that specific incident to expose what the sources call every subtle form of discrimination that had been overlooked for years within the company's service culture.
And the immediate consequences for that crew were waiting right outside the plane.
Yep. The story says they were met by a team of HR officers. Right there on the jet bridge, probably.
So all those behaviors, the dismissive attitudes, the favoritism, suddenly they weren't unchecked anymore.
Not at all. It was all coming under scrutiny. The message is crystal clear. You do not underestimate Darius Coleman.
So the aftermath, it's described as swift, impactful, but also kind of understated.
Yeah, very much so. The crew meets HR and security. Their careers began unraveling before their eyes. Actions under review, employment records frozen while they investigate.
And the material is clear. It wasn't just one big dramatic thing they did wrong.
No, it was the accumulation, these small slights of discrimination, dismissive attitudes, and favoritism, that whole pattern.
And the core mistake they made, according to the story.
They didn't recognize the power in front of them when it was seated in seat 1A. They just saw someone they thought they could dismiss.
And the way the consequences happened, no big public scene, just being quietly escorted away, that was deliberate too.
Seems like it. It wasn't just about firing people. It was a statement from the top, likely driven by Darius's evidence and demands.
One seemingly small act of disrespect.
Ends up pulling back the curtain and unraveling this whole system of complacency that let that behavior slide for who knows how long.
And the ripple effect was fast. The change was happening almost before Stratus leadership even fully grasped what Darius had set off.
Yeah, his single action had sparked this major shift in an entire company's values, forcing them to confront stuff they'd probably ignored or downplayed before.
The core message that comes through loud and clear
is that respect, equality, in service, and probably within the company culture itself. They're not optional. They are non-negotiable.
And what that crew lost was more than just their jobs.
Oh, yeah. They lost the privilege of thinking they could dismiss anyone without facing consequences. That assumption of immunity was gone.
So wrapping this up, what does this all really mean? This story, pulled from these sources, it gives us this incredible look at how one moment, right? A moment of perceived disrespect on a flight.
Filtered through someone's personal history and their current status.
Yeah, how that could ignite this incredibly strategic response that basically dismantled a system, a quiet bias within a huge company.
And Darius Coleman's power wasn't in yelling or immediate confrontation. It was in the quiet observation, the strategic planning, and then the decisive action after the fact.
What's really insightful here, I think, is seeing how one individual who had that determination and frankly, the leverage.
Right, the leverage is key.
Could use a personal slate to force such massive company-wide accountability.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does, and it brings up a really important question for all of us, maybe. When you're facing these subtle but really pervasive issues like bias or just plain indifference, is that calm, strategic, maybe behind-the-scenes approach sometimes way more effective at actually driving change than, say, an immediate public blow-up?